Hey, it's Raven Tactical here. I'm doing part 2 of the whole, kind of what made me who I am series. So, this one's going to cover kind of like the car basis of it, or at least some of the cars. And I think cars kind of define, for people like me, cars define your role in life, right? Like, some people just don't care, right? They got a car, they go to work and back, cool. Well, when you're in high school, at least at my time, a car was your first real freedom, right? Your car, your ability to go anywhere. You could go anywhere you wanted. It opened up the doors. So my first car, and you have to understand, I was starting to look for cars because I was turning 16 and getting my license, or I had my license right about at the same time. I was working. I used to do landscaping, and I think I had a paper route, a couple jobs. I worked at McDonald's for a while. That's a whole different story. And so my first car, because my grandfather on my dad's side passed away, we wound up kind of inheriting his 88 Chevy Corsica. And the Chevy Corsica was if I remember correctly, the 2-liter, 3-speed, automatic, little Econo box thing. I believe it was 4 doors. And it was the base trim. So it didn't have tilt steering, nothing. And I'm over 6 feet tall by the time I'm driving this thing. So getting in into it was kind of funny. I'd hit the steering wheel every time I would hit the brakes. So it was my first car. And the exhaust started having a hole in it. And what does a kid do? Beats on it. And so this little car went everywhere. We took it, all the way out to Elkhart and just driving around, and we just drove all over the place with it. And it was slow. It's so slow. But it was fun, you had a good time. In town it would get ridiculously good gas mileage. On the freeway, because there was no overdrive, it kind of got bad gas mileage. So putzing around on the highways was a little bit easier for it. What we would do is one of the times our school had open lunch where you could go get lunch, but it was crazy. You'd have to get out of school right out of there, run to your car, race into town, get something, and then race back. So you never had time to eat it, so it was stupid. Well, one of the times we're racing back, I'm driving as fast as I can, and there was a sloping curve, and it was just took the curve way too fast and locked it up, and we're going sideways in a Corsica on our way back to school, and it just happened to drift right past and park, hit the lights right next to a guy. So we came side to side. Just stupid stuff with kids, right? The other thing I did in that car that I remember was we had these train tracks back behind the school, and just the way the road was, the road went up, sharp down, but the train tracks were right there. So it made a jump. And it had a little sign that's there, slow down, there's a bump. And people unintentionally did get their car airborne because they weren't paying attention. Well, kids in my school would go back there and go get the damn car airborne. So we would line all the way back up, hammer down, and I remember hammering down, and then the guy in a Mustang was slowing down for it. So I went into the oncoming lane and jumped it. And the car got complete airborne, nosedive down, came down, and kept going. And that's ooh, that was fun. But then you start learning things cars can't handle being jumped. So I think the sway bar links blew out, and the shocks might have gotten a little bit abused. So that poor little car was being abused by yours truly, and I wound up trading it in or selling it to my dad in exchange for this 82 Grand Prix. Now, the 82 Grand Prix was the bigger turd as far as speed. It had a California emissions. It was a G-body, 3.8, 2-barrel carb, and that's another whole experience there too. I learned about cars on that one because I also learned that the rear main was blown out, and it would go through oil like no other. It would just go through oil. I wound up having a crate of oil in the back of it just because it would go through oil, and it went through gas like no other. So it was kind of an interesting car. And it was just slow, but it was rear-wheel drive, and it was a G-body, so it was interesting, right? So here we are trying to put a tape deck in because CD players are expensive. And then we went to the junkyard and found Cadillac rear Bose speakers, wired those in and zip tied it to the back deck so they're sitting on top of the window. Wired in this tape deck that you bought at Best Buy for $60. Wired it all into the rear speakers and then jamming out on your tapes and playing music. And that was just like the cruising around car. And I remember the one time it actually felt like it had power. It was raining, and me and my buddy went to Hollywood Video. We were renting movies, and we just happened to be raining enough, and I hammered on it. And for whatever reason, it either gave up the ghost or it just found that little bit of power in that 3.8. Well, we're going sideways down the street or down the highway. My buddy's screaming about it and getting all mad. And then we correct ourselves and go straight down the road. Well, we're going down the road. I'm like, man, the windows are kind of the front windshield was getting a little humid or foggy, So I'm like, just throw the defrosters on. Well, I threw the defroster on. That was at the same moment that the heater core blew out, and all of a sudden it starts blowing in steam and coolant in there. So now we're like, shut that off. We're choking on coolant with the windows down. And we're all interested in that, So it was like, that's crazy, right? And we're coming up, and there's a turn coming up, and it was a 90-degree turn at the time, and it's right off the highway, so you're going 60 miles an hour. And I look over at my buddy, I'm like, we're not going to use any brakes, So we just whipped into a turn. The car whipped right, skidded, and hopped. I'm like, so there's more dumb stuff you did with a car. I mean, this car made it. The fun part was, so I went and sold it, and a guy bought it, was all excited about it, and that's when I learned another lesson was, when you sell a car, you have to scrub it off your DMV record, otherwise it's going to be your fault, or they'll try to get you for it, because he won't register the car. So the guy never registered the car, and then like a year or two later, we wind up getting all these, or I should say I got all these parking tickets sent to me going, well, why'd you do this and abandon your car? I went, yeah, that wasn't me, here's my bill of sale. But, lesson learned. So then the third car was a Buick Riviera. Mind you, this is all in high school. So, no, I take it back. It was a Mercury I take it back. Olds Cutlass Supreme. Totally forgot about this car. Had some money saved up. Bought the Olds Cutlass Supreme. It was the first year of the front-wheel drive models. It was an 88 or 89. The W bodies with the goofy rear end. It was totally digital, which was kind of cool, digital dash, digital everything. And it was fun. I think it had the 2.8. And it had the streamlined door handles that were in the door. And it was a cool car. Like, it was kind of a fun little sporty-ish car. And, we went around bombing around with that, having a good time. I think I had it for like maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. I was making a left-hand turn. I should take it back. Let me circle back, right? That Grand Prix, a drunk driver hit it, or I shouldn't say hit it, kicked out onto the road and ran into him. Mind you, it was a G-body and he like a newer Bonneville. And I plowed and destroyed his car, and I got the insurance money from that to buy the Olds. That's where that came from. Between that and saving up, I bought the Olds. Well, I had the Olds Cutlass for a couple months, and then we were heading back to my buddy's house in the middle of the, you stage yourself in the intersection in the middle, waiting for the light to turn as you're going left. Well, the light was changing yellow. Well, this kid was racing down the road and passed the guy stopping, ran the red and hit me. T-boned the front end of the car. Hit it so hard that the car actually lifted up and then, turned. I just remember looking down, just pissed and so angry. In my center console, there was like an ashtray, and it had broken off and was just spinning on basically the center console. Just so mad. So I got the insurance money from that, and I had my dad's friend paint it. We painted it jet black. But the mistake I made was, it was a front-wheel drive car that got hit in the front end. So all the body work was done, but it got hit pretty much on the transmission side. So the transmission was pretty much starting to go. So I wound up selling that cheap and then buying a 89 Mercury Sable. It's kind of like the same one they used in RoboCop. And that was kind of an interesting, bizarre car. Another digital dash. I mean, it was that common era of that car. However, it had the 3.8 in it, which was kind of a cool motor for that, even though they're known for blowing head gaskets. So it had a lot of torque for what it was. And it was geared just right that you could almost always spin the tires, just smoke the tires on it. And it was kind of fun. Like, you could punch in and it would just light them up and you could leave it. And it was kind of like the first car that had, and I'm jokingly saying, had some power to it. And you're talking 3.8 Mercury Sable. Like, the rest of the cars were pooches. You know, you did the neutral bomb thing, but that was it. Like, oh, geez, you know, nothing. And so that was a fun one. Had it for a couple months. And I remember getting ready for my exam week in high school, junior year, I think. And maybe it was senior year. And I hear this, I'm, you know, getting ready for school. My sister's getting ready for school. I'm in the bathroom. You hear, bam! And mind you, like, what was that? So get ready, look outside, and then knock on the door, and you're like, hello? And, you know, and this guy goes, hey, I'm really sorry, I just hit your car. Well, mind you, we lived in the subdivision, and it was snowing, because it's Wisconsin in winter. And this guy had lost control, went across he lost control, got up on the sidewalk, got up on the neighbor's yard, and I think he had all intentions of just riding it out and coming back down. Well, what he didn't notice was it's dark. You know, it's pretty dark until like 7 o'clock in the morning now. Then it was 6. Well, he was riding it out and he hit the landscaping boulder in front of my parents' house. And then I think that was pretty much it. He hit that and then he smashed into my Mercury Sable right in the trunk. And he hit it so hard that he rotated the trunk, or rotated the whole car 90 degrees. So the car spun up 90 degrees and it was blocking our whole driveway. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, you all right? And I remember my mom freaking out and getting all upset, and I went, just call the cops, you know, like, make the police report. I'm like, I'm fine, the car's not, you know, the guy's okay. So there was, cops came, gave the guy a ticket for whatever, his insurance paid for it. And I think that's when I used that insurance money to buy the strangest car, one of the strangest cars I ever owned. It's an 86 Buick Riviera. Now, if you know what an 86 Buick Riviera looks like, it was kind of their first front-wheel drive versions, and it had a touchscreen computer on it that ran the whole car. So it had a touchscreen computer, and it kind of was green, and it glowed green, kind of like an 80s computer would. It looked like Tron. And it ran the whole thing. It ran the HVAC system, so all your heater, blower, air conditioning. It ran the audio system, which was great, until what would happen was it would crash. And then it would go full volume and squelch. So you would get static at full volume, and you'd have to shut her off. And it would happen randomly. What it was the screen. It was a touchscreen computer, but it was a normal TV. So if you think about it, it's your old school TV, not a flat screen, but an old school TV, you know, tube TV, and they interlaid like a mesh over the front of it, and that was your touch screen that ran everything. And it basically would short out, would be the shortest explanation for it, and couldn't replace it. Tried getting it, was going to put an aftermarket deck in it, and it was just too much to do. So then that one died. So that one, oh no, the Buick was fine. Buick was fine. I was driving that my senior year of high school. Great car. It had some goofy things on it, like the lights would stay running or whatever. The lights would stay on. So it had one of those, you know, like those lamps that would stay on after you shut the car off. It had digital everything. It was just, you know, kind of a weird grandpa's car-ish, but like sporty grandpa. And it was fun. Just interesting. So then one day, you know, I'm making good money working at the television studio. He's still in high school. He didn't, you know, I think it was getting close to like graduating. And I drove past this car. I'm like, it looks sporty, you know. I wasn't much into the imports at the time, but it looked sporty, it looked clean. It was a Ford, it was white, and it was two-door, and like, man, like, it looked pretty cool. It was for sale. So then I drove past it, and I'm like, Ford Probe, and it's manual, and that was one thing that I really wanted in a car. So I found, you know, called it, and like made the purchase. I bought it outright, and it was a 1990 Ford Probe GT 5-speed, pretty much fully loaded, and it had everything but leather and the mysterious subwoofer, and it was so cool. It was turbocharged, and so the MX-6 and Probes, you know, there's a whole thing that goes with them. It was clean. It had less than 80,000 miles on it, and it was brilliant white and clean white. Just a cool car. And I'm gonna go into that more in the third series of it. I'm gonna call that the game changer car. So thank you for watching. I know it's kind of a long video, and if you're paying attention to it, I appreciate it. Signing out.